Today, we have a wide variety of unusual jobs, from influencers to snake milkers. These odd jobs range from the necessary to the downright pointless. But weird jobs aren't just a product of the digital age. Throughout history, people have made a living in very strange ways. But whatever pays the bills, am I right? Keep watching to see how your career compares to some of these odd professions as we count down 7 of the weirdest and most unconventional jobs in history. Number 7. Bird Scarer. While many methods were used to keep birds away from crops, the most effective way was to employ a bird scarer. This job was usually held by boys as young as 7, who were given rattles, sticks, stones, and even guns to keep the birds away from the crops. A bird scarer's day would have been long, as they were expected to be there from around 4 a.m. until the evening. Children were employed as bird scarers since at least the medieval period. During the 1880s, boys could earn a penny a day scaring birds. Bird scaring was a legitimate job until the early 1900s, and some boys would walk for miles to keep this gainful employment. You may be thinking, why not just use a scarecrow? Well, scarecrows were invented due to a lack of bird scarers. After the Black Death decimated communities in 1348, landowners struggled to find enough young men to scare off the birds. They stuffed sacks with straw and carved faces into turnips to compensate for the lack of workforce. However, the scarecrows weren't as effective as a rowdy lad, and the birds quickly got used to these stationary mannequins. Nowadays, farmers use a range of technological methods, from radio-controlled planes to acoustic systems and even lasers to prevent birds from eating their crops. Number 6. Knockeruppers. During the Industrial Revolution, people could no longer rely on the sunrise or their farm animals to wake them. Shift work began to become popular. People worked odd hours, and there was an increasing need to be on time. While the first mechanical alarm clock was invented in 1847, they were not commonplace. So, how did workers make sure they were up on time to get to work? Well, this is where knockeruppers came in. If you needed to wake at a certain time, you would pay a knockerupper to come and wake you in the morning. In 1878, Mrs. Walters, a knockerupper from the north of England, spoke about the blossoming profession. She stated, "When knocking up began to be a regular trade, we used to rap or ring at the door of our customers. Soon, these human alarm clocks encountered a problem. The knocker-upper soon found that while he knocked up one who paid him, he knocked up several on each side who did not." Not only did those who did not want to be woken complain about the knocker-uppers, but some people got a free awakening. So the knocker-uppers decided to tap on their customers' bedroom windows instead, which would be quiet enough not to disturb the neighbors, but would still wake the client. Knocker-ups started using long sticks to tap on the bedroom windows on the upper floor of the workers' cottages. Some knocker-uppers, such as Mary Smith of East London, used pea shooters to wrap the workers' windows. Many knocker-uppers were well known in their communities. Dorset had Caroline Jane Cousins, known to many as Granny Cousins, who would wake brewery workers. She retired in 1918 and was Poole's last knocker-upper. In County Durham, Mrs. Bowers would wake up at 1 a.m. to help miners get up for their early shift. Mechanical alarm clocks replaced knocker-uppers in the 1940s and 1950s, although some areas preferred the human touch until the early 1970s. But who woke the knocker-ups? Well, it was likely that the job went to those with a natural predisposition for waking early. But the conundrum did inspire this tongue twister. "We had a knocker-up, and our knocker-up had a knocker-up, and our knocker-up's knocker-up didn't knock our knocker-up, so our knocker-up didn't knock us up, 'cause he's not up." Number 5. Leech Collector. To put this job into context, bloodletting was a common cure for certain ailments since ancient Egypt. Hippocrates believed that health was based on 4 humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. If you were ill, it meant your humors were out of balance, and one way you could get them back in harmony was by getting rid of excess blood. One method of bloodletting was using leeches to suck the blood from the patient. Leeches were so popular with physicians in the early 19th century that France and England imported millions of the little bloodsuckers. Leeches are usually found in muddy, swampy water. The best way to find them is to let them come to you. Old horses were often used as bait and were walked through the water, sometimes after having their legs deliberately cut to attract more leeches. The leech collectors would then pick the leeches off the horse's legs and put them into containers filled with water so they could be transported to the doctors who used them. Of course, it wasn't just the horse's legs that attracted the leeches, and leech collectors often had to pull them off their own legs. It was not uncommon for these leech collectors to suffer from severe blood loss, and despite the hard work done in marshy swampland, they were not well compensated for their labor. Number 4. Fullers. In ancient Rome, a fuller was a launderer. Now, washing clothes for a living doesn't seem so weird, but how they were washed makes it unusual. Before laundry detergent, there was only one way to keep your whites white, and that was with ammonia. Ammonia has a high pH, and when mixed with water, can help neutralize grease and dirt and disinfect fabric. But where did they get ammonia? They got it from urine. Urine was perfect for washing clothes, as it is a natural bleach, and the public urinals that became a popular feature of Roman infrastructure in the 1st century CE were a great source of this not-so-clean cleaning product. Fullers did not get this byproduct completely free, as they would have to pay taxes on the buckets of urine people collected from Roman bathhouses and latrines. As well as human urine, animal pee was used, and while fullers might not have smelled the best, they were certainly well compensated. In many cases, they were the city's most highly paid and successful workers. Without washing machines, the pee would be poured into large vats where the clothes would be placed. Then the fullers would need to agitate the clothes to wash out all the stains. The best way to do that was to climb into the pee-filled vat and tread on the clothes, ensuring all odors were removed, other than the urine odor, that is. The clothes were then thoroughly rinsed and dried. Fullers were not thought of very highly in Roman society. They were more associated with filthiness than cleaning. However, fullers were an essential part of city life, as most Roman homes did not have running water, and they did not do laundry at home. Those with the space to wash their clothes would not have done so due to their status, and the poorer Romans lived in dark, small apartments in buildings called insulae. These Romans could barely cook at home, let alone do laundry. Number 3. Whipping boy. You may have heard this phrase before, as it has made its way into our language as a synonym for someone who is made to bear the blame of others. This definition may give you some clue as to what this job entailed. In the past, royalty was seen as having divine rights. They were untouchable, which extended to high-born children as well as adults. Unfortunately, in those days, physical punishment was the cornerstone of education, and sons of kings and aristocrats had to be educated. So how did the tutors of these young princes cope when their pupils needed to be reprimanded? You guessed it, they whipped another boy instead. Despite the obvious unjust nature of the position, being a whipping boy was quite desirable for a young lad who wanted to move up socially. When the two were grown, William Murray, Charles I of England's page and whipping boy, was awarded several high positions. The boys would receive the same education as the future king, which was the highest degree of learning available at the time, and they would often go on to lead a noble life after the tutelage was complete. This odd job was not just confined to Europe. In China, especially during the Qing dynasty, Jews also studied alongside young princes and could rise to social prominence when they came of age. Regardless of how effective using a whipping boy was, it must have certainly been a good judge of character for the future king. It is not hard to imagine that those who tried harder to spare their companions would have grown up to be just and fair rulers. Number 2. Vomit collector. Ancient Romans sure had a weird thing about collecting bodily fluids. In ancient Rome, excess was used to show how powerful you were, and eating and drinking was the best way of demonstrating excess. Affluent Romans held lavish banquets to show off their wealth and celebrate religious festivals and the Roman gods. These banquets would offer so much food that the guests would get so full they couldn't possibly eat another bite, unless they made room. Once everyone was well and truly stuffed, vomit collectors would come in with bowls in which guests could chuck up what they just chowed down to stuff more food into their faces. Occasionally, they didn't even wait for the bowl and just puked on the floor. In this case, the vomit collectors would have to clean up what the diners threw up. While we consider all this pretty gross, the Romans felt that vomiting was healthy, Roman doctors would encourage people to puke to purge toxins. Number 1. Groom of the Stool. This job might not sound so bad, except the stool referred to in the title isn't the three-legged kind. During the Tudor period, a toilet was called a stool. Tudor kings had attendants for pretty much everything, including going to the bathroom. The groom of the stool was responsible for meeting the king's needs while he relieved himself. Duties included supplying towels and a wash bowl for afterward, but given the heavy and elaborate clothes worn by kings of the period, it may have included helping the king get onto the toilet and even wiping the royal posterior. The groom of the stool would have also been expected to monitor the king's bowel movements to ensure the monarch was healthy, and any issues would have been reported to doctors. While this may sound pretty gross to most of us, in the Tudor times it was a much coveted position in which you literally had intimate access to the king. The court had its public roles filled with nobles and aristocrats, but the king's personal sphere was exclusively kept for his private chambers. Known as the Privy Chamber, the king would select a group of his closest advisors with whom he could discuss matters privately. King Henry VII first created the Privy Chamber in roughly 1495, but the role was expanded during the reign of Henry VIII. Henry VIII trusted his groom of the stool so much that he added responsibilities, including governing the other men in the privy chambers and helping the king dress and undress. The groom of the stool became the one responsible for the expenditures of the privy purse, the guardian of important items such as the king's jewel and plate, and had control over who was allowed into the king's private chambers. Another bonus of this job was that you could live like a king. You would have lodgings wherever the king went and would often be gifted the king's old clothes and furnishings. Given that all fabric was handmade and the king's clothes would be made with the finest material available, these were no ordinary hand-me-downs. While the position held no political sway, the groom of the stool had the king's ear and was still a very influential figure. When Elizabeth I came to power, a lady of the bedchamber held this coveted position. The last groom of the stool was James Hamilton in the late 1800s, who attended Queen Victoria's son and heir, Edward. But Edward later abolished the position when he came to power in 1901. Do you have any unusual jobs that could out-weird these historical occupations? Let us know in the comments below. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.